Jayson Tatum has officially been diagnosed to have torn his Achilles. He already underwent successful surgery to repair that torn Achilles. This is good news for Jaylen Brown. Let me explain why, right? So, the whole time that Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum have been teammates together, there's always been this debate of who's better, Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown, right? For a majority of them playing together, I feel like for the most part, most people have thought and still think that Jayson Tatum is a better player than Jaylen Brown. Now, Jaylen Brown proved last year when he won Conference Finals MVP and the regular NBA Finals MVP, he showed the world that he can be the best player on the team, right? That was the first year that people looked and said, damn, maybe Jaylen Brown is better than Jayson Tatum, right? But when you look at this season, it's obvious that Jayson Tatum had a better season than Jaylen Brown this year. Jayson Tatum played with a chip on his shoulder. He was in the Olympics. Steve Kerr benched him for a majority of the time that he was playing for the Olympics, which didn't make any sense. And Jayson Tatum was, he wasn't playing no games this year. Even in this game where he tore his Achilles, the guy had 42 points. Like, he was putting the team on his back. And I think if he would have never torn his Achilles, I feel like Boston would have won this game. It was a much-needed win for Boston. Now they're going back to Boston down 3-1. And even right now, look, man, Jaylen Brown, we've seen Jaylen Brown like tweets on Twitter, where people are saying that he's the best player on the Celtics and, he's underestimated and, people don't really see his value. Jaylen Brown, you talk a lot of shit, bro. I've been watching your press conferences this whole playoffs. I watched what you were saying when you were playing the Orlando Magic. I watched what you've been saying in this series with the New York Knicks. Jaylen Brown talks a lot of shit. He just said like 2 or 3 days ago, he was talking about how he feels like no player can get to the rim like he can. I disagree. I think Giannis can get to the rim better than Jaylen Brown. I think Zion Williamson can get to the rim better than Jaylen Brown. I think LeBron James at 40 years old, when he's healthy and when he's feeling good, can get to the rim better than Jaylen Brown. I think Ja Morant can get to the rim better than Jaylen Brown. I can go on and on. I think Anthony Edwards can get to the rim better than Jaylen Brown. I've also seen Jaylen Brown say in interviews that he can be whatever he wants to be for his team. He can be the number one option. He can be the number two option, right? He pretty much says that he does whatever he needs to do to get his team to win, right? That's what he said in an interview with Wallow and Gilly, right? So Jaylen Brown, your team is down 3-1, right? Jayson Tatum is going to be out for the whole season next year, right? So you have a whole season where you're undoubtedly going to be the number one option for the Boston Celtics. Show and prove, brother. Show us that you can be the number one option on your team without Jayson Tatum. Because I think that these guys need each other, right? I think that Tatum needs Jaylen Brown just as much as Jaylen Brown needs Jayson Tatum, right? You put either one of these guys on a different team, and I honestly don't know if they're going to look the same. I don't know. Because Jayson Tatum is a very streaky shooter. He tends to struggle, right? He has struggles where some games he's just not playing good. He has a poor shooting percentage. Jaylen Brown, also, I feel like there's games where, Jaylen Brown isn't clutch enough for his team. I think that's one of Jaylen Brown's biggest flaws is, like, he's not really clutch. Like, when his team needs him the most, when the Boston Celtics need Jaylen Brown to score that basket the most, he kind of folds, bro. He can become a very streaky three-point shooter. There's times where Jaylen Brown just looks too hesitant and just not aggressive as he should be. You understand what I'm saying? So I love the fact that, and I'm not happy that Jayson Tatum tore his Achilles. I don't want y'all to think that. But this is a good thing for the Boston Celtics because now we can see, is Jaylen Brown, is he who he says he is, right? Is he really as good as he says he is, right? Can he lead Boston to the Eastern Conference Finals next year? Can he lead Boston to the playoffs next year? Can he lead Boston to being a top 3 or top 5 seeded team in the Eastern Conference next year? These are questions that we need to know because Boston is still a good team, right? You still got Drew Holiday. You still got Kristaps Porzingis. You still got the veteran Al Horford who's still balling at his age. You still got Derek White, who's going to be the #2 option next season, who was in the Olympics, who did his thing, right? You got Pritchard coming off the bench. Now there is rumors that Boston is going to make some big changes this offseason because I don't know if it's called the CBA rules, but because of whatever, a lot of teams aren't going to be able to have 3 stars anymore, which is a part of the reason why we seen the Denver Nuggets get rid of KCP and they got rid of Bruce Brown. Teams just can't afford to keep all of these guys on the same team anymore. So we were already hearing rumors that there were going to be some major changes for Boston in this offseason. They possibly might trade Kristaps Porzingis. They possibly might trade Drew Holiday. Who knows, man? What we do know is they're not going to trade Jaylen Brown. That's what we do know. And I'm hoping that they don't trade Derek White. I think that'd be a huge mistake. But I'm very excited to see how Jaylen Brown reacts to his guy, Jayson Tatum, not being there no more. I want to see, how does Jaylen Brown perform under pressure? How does Jaylen Brown lead his team to wins without Jayson Tatum? Because I feel like the pressure has always been on Jayson Tatum. I don't think the pressure has ever really been on Jaylen Brown, because everybody has always thought Tatum was better than Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown always felt like, he didn't have as much to prove as Tatum did, So let me know what you guys think, man. Am I tripping? Like, what do y'all think about this video, man? How do you predict that Boston season is going to go next year? Do you think Boston is going to make it to the playoffs? Do you think they can get to the Eastern Conference without Jayson Tatum? To be honest with y'all, I don't know. I don't know, man. I think Jaylen Brown is a good player. I think Jayson Tatum is a better scorer than Jaylen Brown, but I do think that Jaylen Brown is a better overall player than Jayson Tatum, because Jaylen Brown is better on defense. I think Jaylen Brown has a better basketball IQ. Jaylen Brown usually has a better shooting percentage than Tatum. And, Tatum is a more streaky shooter, but when Tatum is on fire, he's on fire, man. And one thing that I think that makes Tatum a better scorer than Jaylen Brown is Jayson Tatum is clutch. When you need somebody to hit the game winner or to hit that 3-pointer to take the lead, Jayson Tatum is your guy. He's shown that time after time. We haven't seen that from Jaylen Brown, y'all. We haven't seen Jaylen Brown, hit that clutch shot to give his team the lead, in crunch time. We haven't seen Jaylen Brown hit that game winner, But what we have seen from Jaylen Brown this whole season is him running his goddamn mouth, just talking about how good he is. But when it comes to him being on the court, we haven't seen that. So it's your boy Wavy. I'm out.